I would like to invite Professor Chen as well as Professor Qi Yin. You do have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Chen. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Journalism and Communication in Xiamen University. And my other two co-authors are Shubing Wu, who is a postgraduate student, and Yin Qi, who is a professor in School of Journalism and Communication. They are my colleagues in Xiamen University. I'm very glad to be the final presenter of this conference, but I have to confess that this is still an ongoing research, and our data set is incomplete. So after briefly introducing the background and the methods of this research, I will present some preliminary analysis and seek for comments and criticisms. So for the background, actually the presentation by Colin and Shen Hong already laid out the background for our research. We have a lot of overlaps with their research, but I will briefly repeat some of the background. The paper was one of the first specialized digital payment services in the world. It was launched in the US in 1998. However, compared to China, the adoption of digital payment in the US is relatively slow, and by 2019, 73.4% of smartphone users in China have used digital payment services. This figure also cited by Colin and Shen's research. And in contrast, in the US, the figure is 14.1%. But in the world, I think the trend is that the adoption of digital payment services is rapidly rising across the world. And in China, as Dr. Shen already mentioned, is already infrastructuralized in Chinese societies. So in Shen's another paper, Shen and her colleagues another paper, they examined the infrastructuralization process of WeChat Pay in China based on interview data. So thanks to Dr. Shen, this paper has inspired our research. So a brief literature review on the research of mobile payment. So in general, mobile payment service systems are rooted from specific social, cultural, economic, and regulatory contexts, and in turn have implications to local societies. And focusing on WeChat, there are many studies examining the social cultural factors of WeChat Pay. Particularly, anthropologists are interested in the sociality associated with digital money afforded by WeChat Pay, as examined by Tom MacDonald. He has many works on the social cultural factors of WeChat Pay. And there are also other studies along this direction. So besides the social and the cultural, also there are research focuses on the policy and the governance perspective. And our research will follow this direction, and we hope to use empirical data to dig a little bit deeper. So to examine the mobile payment service, the regulatory context is important. And in China, there is a self-sustained social media ecosystem in parallel to that of the West. That is, many Western platforms have their Chinese counterparts. For example, Twitter and its Chinese counterparts Weibo. And more recently, also many Chinese platforms has gone international, like Douyin and its international version TikTok. So these Chinese platforms are in the parallel legal universe, governed by very different regulatory forces compared to their counterparts in the US. And according to Wang and Lebato, the regulatory tradition in China is a state-centered paternalist approach, and in contrast, in the US, it has a liberalist governance tradition. But more recently, we can see the development is that both in China and in the US, the governance approach are evolving to a co-regulatory framework. And what's underpinning the China's internet governance is the techno-nationalist ideologies, as argued by many scholars, especially for Chinese information and communication technologies. So this ideology views advanced technology as the national asset and as the key for the nation's economic development. So for China's development and for China's internet development and internet governance, it's evident that techno nationalism has supported many digital infrastructure. For example, the Internet Plus campaign. It is underpinned with discourses such as Chinese dream and national rejuvenation. This is an example of how techno-nationalism shaping China's internet development. And for the development of mobile payment service, plenty and data science research show that it's also shaped by the techno-nationalism. So the WeChat's infrastructuralization in Chinese societies has supported by the Chinese government. It becomes the nation's infrastructure and mobile payment, which is WeChat Pay, is a key feature in this process. So inspired by previous research, we are interested in the interplay between mobile payments, platform expansion, and regulatory contexts. So we have seen a lot of research around WeChat and around WeChat Pay. However, to date we have found little research, academic research about Facebook Pay. Perhaps because Facebook Pay was released in 2019 and it is still a young function in the platform of Facebook. But how WeChat Pay and Facebook Pay is comparable? First of all, from the surface level, so both the platforms are social media platforms, and they developed their payment systems based on their respective social media platforms. And both platforms has undergone a process of infrastructuralization. So for WeChat, it's primarily infrastructuralized in China. For Facebook, its ambition is to the international market. WeChat Pay released much earlier than Facebook Pay. WeChat Pay released with WeChat 5.0 in 2013, and now it's China's second largest digital payment service, just followed Alipay, and it has 1.15 billion yearly active users. So according to the ranking of mobile payment services based on user base in this world, WeChat ranked number 1, followed by Alipay, Apple Pay, PayPal, and Samsung Pay. As for Facebook Pay, we couldn't find any public available data on the number of its users. Although according to its official website, this feature is available on its 4 apps like Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So probably this is still a young function, and we don't see much data related to this feature. And in our research, we hope to find out more in Tencent's annual reports and Facebook's annual reports. So we collected Tencent's annual reports from 2013 to 2020 because WeChat Pay, this feature was released in 2013. And in their annual reports, we removed content irrelevant to the payment business of WeChat. And we combined all the content into one text, and we conducted a social network analysis with Gephi, and we also used Gephi for the data visualization. But for Facebook, we collected all its annual reports. But before 2019, we found that there are very very little content relevant to Facebook's payment business. And 2019, there are more paragraphs about its digital payment, but still the text is too small and it's not sufficient for the social network analysis. We just analyze the data manually. So first, let's look at the social network analysis of WeChat. This is a network for the text we combined from Tencent's 8 years annual reports. And this figure displays the co-occurrence between the word payment, 支付, and other words in Tencent's annual reports. So we can see what words have a close relationship with payment, and these words are service, user, business, like inquiries, platform, income, products, and group. So these words are highly connected with the business of WeChat, and it suggests WeChat Pay is an important feature for WeChat's platform expansion. And for this figure, it's the 8 clusters like divided from this network, and we found a small cluster in the preview of this network. It shows some topics about platform governance related to digital payments like anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing. But this is only a small part in this whole network. It's account for 5.02%. For Facebook Pay, we manually mapped out the development of this feature in the country. In this company, we found that as early as 2012, Facebook started to apply for money transmitter license in the US, and it was granted 1 year later. And in 2015, Facebook enabled a feature on Message. And this feature allows its users to send money to their contacts. Only after 2019, Facebook officially released Facebook Pay. But in its annual reports, it has more focus and more paragraphs on its digital currency project like Libra and later renamed as DIM. And in its annual report, we didn't find like the word Facebook Pay, although this is in its official website. So I think Facebook has more international ambitions. So it want to develop the digital currency project and has paid less attention to its digital payment feature, Facebook Pay. So as I mentioned before, the data set is still incomplete, and we are still working on this research. But for some preliminary conclusion, we can see WeChat Pay has developed on a Chinese on a relatively immature Chinese banking infrastructure. It compensate with the existing banking infrastructure in China, and its payment feature is highly associated with the platform's expansion, but its expansion is primarily targeted the domestic market. Although all internet companies are born globally, like in the technical sense. But for Facebook Pay, this feature has established on a relatively mature banking system in the US, and it has little room for this feature to develop, but it has the international ambition. So in its annual report, it has much more paragraphs on its digital currency project. For some similarities, we in both Facebook's and WeChat's annual reports, we found we found the word anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing, which suggests the common challenges posed by digital payment in the global internet governance. So the next step, we will collect more materials, and we plan to web scraping some news reports relevant to Facebook Pay and WeChat Pay, and hopefully we can improve this research in the future with more data. Thank you.